Hi, I'm Kevin Sampsell here at the Writers Dojo in Portland, Oregon. We're here to talk with Steve Almond, best-selling author of Not That You Asked. Now,
Right.
and I know you've talked to me in the past about doing a book of flash fiction stuff,
Right.
because you actually are pretty widely published in that field as well. I see a lot of your flash fiction in different magazines now. And so do you still have an idea of maybe doing something like that? Because you said you wanted to have some of your flash fiction, but also maybe to have some instructional stuff, or like it would almost be a book on writing with like some of those examples.
Yeah, here's what it is. It's I hope this will be my next manuscript. It's stupid to talk about anything, but it's finished already, and I'll find somebody to publish it. I don't care who, but just somebody. I don't want it to be a big. I don't want anybody to expect that it will make any money. It is absolutely the worst possible plan. As you could run it by the marketing department and they would all throw up, or just keep napping. It's 30 short shorts and 30 very short lectures about writing, and I hope it'll be 60 pages, and it's just called "This Won't Take But a Minute, Honey," and that's all it is. Is like you should be able to read every page in a minute. Which is only because it's not about bowing to our frantic inattention or anything like that. It's just more, I've been writing sort of big full-size books with long chapters and so on and so forth, and I really just wanted to get some really short pieces out into the world. I love writing them. I spent a year writing really lousy poetry, and then realizing that some of those really lousy poems were lousy partly because I'm a storyteller naturally, and converted sometimes into prose. They actually were okay. They weren't great, but I've continued to write shorts, and I love that form. I did a reading for a short anthology, and there were like 80 people there, and I thought, I just am teaching here at Tin House, and I asked my class, so what do you guys write? And maybe 4 or 5 out of 12 of them said, well, I really love writing flash. So I think there's something about the emotional immediacy of it. You have a very short space to get real emotionally, and if a piece succeeds, it's because you've done that. That it's the same thing that used to draw people, I think, to the short story, is that it's a real compressed emotional experience and sensual experience. So I just want to get some of them out into the world, and I also find myself saying the same things over and over again when I teach, and I thought, okay, I know what I talk about when I talk about the two forces that impinge on you when you sit at the keyboard. I've given that rap, 50 times in the past 5 years. I might as well just write it down, because that way I can just read it in class. I don't even have to remember it.
Yeah, so. And I've seen you do readings several times, and always in the question and answer part of the reading at Powell's or wherever you're at, people are always ask you about writing and that whole process. And I think that the way you talk about it is really, really great and really inspiring in a way that's different than what a lot of other writers say. Yeah. And so I think that would be, I would really look forward to a book like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, knock on wood, part of my inspiration is Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet, for the simple reason that I don't want to write a craft book that's like, okay, point of view. I think the world's full of those, and then many of them are very smart, and that's great. I think of writing, my experience of it is that it's excruciatingly difficult. You're basically locked away alone, having to make a lot of decisions about which you frequently have a great deal of doubt. And it's a very lonely undertaking. It requires a real sustained kind of attention that is hard to come by in our lives and in the culture at large. And I think a lot of craft stuff can be helpful, and there's certainly a lot of that stuff that will be in this little book. But I also wanted to write about the emotional and psychological experience of trying to write and kind of what you're up against. And I think what people appreciate is that I don't sit there and go, yeah, man, you just got to let it flow or find your voice. I'm like, it's super hard. I'll do anything I can to avoid writing. I'm guilty all the time. I always think everything I write is shitty. And there are actual, real psychological reasons for all of those feelings that go beyond me just being a very sad human. I think any writer who is going to try to do it seriously should know those things. They shouldn't just hear a pep talk about, okay, point of view, now make sure, So and I also think a lot of the craft stuff, it's just too full of rhetoric and bullshit. There are certain things that can be said very simply. And over years and years of teaching, I feel like I have gotten better at boiling away a lot of the rhetoric and just saying, look, for instance, the problem with your story, lovely student A, is you're trying to get us to feel and embed in the consciousness of your protagonist, but we don't know anything about who your protagonist is, where she is, what she cares about, and that's a fundamental problem. And until you solve that, you're never going to get us to feel what you want us to feel for that character. Like, that's not a real complicated message. So hopefully these little short lectures will be useful.
Do you think, saying when you're teaching some of your students, do you actually have that feeling like, well, some people have it and they're going to do well, and some people don't have it? Or do you think it can be taught?
I don't feel that way at all, and I think talent, the kids who come into a workshop with quote-unquote talent, I don't mean kids, whoever it is, whatever students, if they have talent, that means somewhere along the line, someone has told them, oh, you're really talented with the language. Being talented with the language is not the same as writing a story that really breaks somebody's heart. That's a certain kind of psychological and emotional work, and a willingness to expose yourself and to sort of run towards the unbearable feelings or push your characters towards them. And that's kind of squishy stuff to talk about. It's not craft stuff, and I don't think it's something that can be taught. It can maybe be inspired. I mean, the reason that kids get into writing, or if you're drawn to writing at any point, is you read something beautiful and you say, I want to spend my time doing that. You know, I was a TV kid. In the mid-20s, I happened to find a couple of great books of stories, and I thought, oh, those are the people who are doing the important human work. I want to do that. I don't want to spend my time at the penny ante table knocking out stupid reviews of Metallica. Not that there was anything wrong with that. It was fun, but it wasn't very deep or fulfilling. So what my hope is that when I'm teaching, I'll kind of convince my students that doing that kind of work will make their lives more interesting. Probably more painful, but more interesting, because it's just like leading an examined life. And if they don't, and they just want to skate across the surface and buy their products, then that's their choice. But that decision has turned out to be pretty disastrous for this species. I believe, like Vonnegut, kept talking about before he died, we lose the capacity to engage with acts of imagination, we're sunk as a species. So I'm very urgent about it. But you're asking about teaching, it's like, people are, can you teach, like, you can say these things and you can try to get people fired up, and you can be very concrete about when decisions on the page are good or bad and try to point that out to people. And one student might look like they're completely checked out, and absolutely 5 years later it sinks in and it clicks and they become a writer, and a serious one. And somebody else could be very earnestly trying to take your medicine, and it will just never work for them because they're not willing to be that exposed on the page. You can't say, but it's kind of up to them, the capacity to figure out whether your decisions are good or bad. My students will always say, well, like, I hate everything I've written now, they'll say at the end of a class, and it's like, good, you just got better. You can see all your bad decisions, and next time out you're less apt to make them.
Well, thank you for spending time with us at the Writers
Absolutely.
Dojo. And once again, this is Steve Almond. I'm Kevin Sampsell, and thanks for watching.
All right.